Hi, hello again and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video. Please leave a like and subscribe. It's a free way that you can help me out. Welcome back to the deep dive into the Michael and Danielle Redlick case. In part 3, we will be covering the trial, the verdict and the sentencing. Danielle's trial started on 8 June 2022. Prosecutors stated that Danielle had premeditated the murder, and she ensured that she and Michael were alone that night, that she armed herself with a knife and ensured that she killed him. They also maintained the fact that she lied on the 911 call, as well as afterward to the detectives and welfare and psychologists, was evident of the fact that she didn't want to face up to what she did. They informed the jury that the cleanup that she did made it so that CSI team could not determine where the altercation started and where Michael was stabbed. The defense stated that it was self-defense and that Danielle feared for her life and that she had no other choice but to arm herself to get Michael to let go of her. They stated that they would prove that the relationship was volatile and that their fights had turned physical, that Michael was much stronger and bigger than her, and that she did not have much way of fighting back against him. They also stated that even though she knew that she had wounded Michael, she didn't think that she would kill him. That her main intent was to get him off of her so she could escape. Otherwise, why would she stab him in the shoulder?
Both prosecutors and the defense spent about 50 minutes total laying out their cases to the juries. Both sides described the couple's marriage and the time leading up to Michael Redlick's death in January of 2019. The prosecution is focusing on Danielle Redlick's actions after her husband died. They say she reportedly waited 11 hours to call 911 and first told dispatchers he had a heart attack after an argument. Investigators say she later changed her story and claimed he stabbed himself. Officers also believe she tried to clean up the crime scene before calling 911. Prosecutors describe the scene like something out of a horror movie and say Redlick was looking at a dating site while her husband was lying on the floor. Now, Redlick's lawyers claim that Michael Redlick had become aggressive and angry after finding texts from another man on Danielle Redlick's phone. They say he attacked her and she stabbed him because she had no choice but to defend herself.
He pushes her down. She goes to her knees. He pulls her up by the hair. He shoves her to the kitchen island. He chokes. He smothers her. She reaches into a drawer. She grabs a knife. She stabs him one time.
Why? Why does Miss Redlick say, after 11 hours in that home with that dead man, that she thinks that he died of a heart attack? The evidence is going to show that from the start, this defendant did everything she could to avoid responsibility for her actions.
This 48-year-old mother, now an accused murderer. Prosecutors say Danielle Redlick killed her husband in cold blood.
Miss Redlick armed herself with a knife. She used that knife to cause multiple injuries to Mr. Redlick's body. One of those injuries was that stab to the shoulder, which enters, travels, hits these major veins, and punctures his lung, causing him to bleed to death on the floor.
Defense attorneys admit Danielle stabbed Michael Redlick, but they claim she acted in self-defense.
On the night of January 11th, 2019, someone was very, very angry. This someone started to physically attack their spouse. They had rage. They were choking their spouse, smothering their spouse. That someone was Michael Redlick. And Danielle Redlick had no choice but to defend herself because she was afraid she was going to die. And so she did.
The argument of self-defense must be rooted in proportionality, explains Florida-based criminal defense attorney J.A. Baer.
You can't just pull a gun out and shoot somebody because they slapped you in the face. The force has to be met with deadly force.
You will hear about her emotions on seeing this and that she reacted in confusion because she had only stabbed him one time in the shoulder.
In this case, self-defense is an argument based in a larger claim of spousal abuse.
We'll also see, more likely than not, a witness that can talk about battered spouse and the toll that we see. It is not something that occurs overnight. It's a grooming situation. It's a process where abuse continues and continues. So they will mount that charge.
Michael is pretty violent with Danielle on several occasions. You will hear about one particular incident where Michael punched her in the face, bruised her face, and chipped her tooth.
Police had been called to the couple's home on at least 2 occasions because of their fights, a history particularly significant in the context of this murder trial.
You have to look at what does the track record look like for both parties. And is there a history of police reports? Is there a history of calls for domestic violence? And I'm certain there'll be a doctor or psychologist or psychiatrist who will come in and testify.
In 2020, Redlick was offered a plea deal, plead guilty to manslaughter and serve prison time for at least 10 years. But it was a deal she ultimately rejected.
It is a big risk.
A conviction at trial on the more serious charge of second-degree murder will most certainly mean a harsher punishment.
This is uniquely and unequivocally her decision to go to trial. There may be a point in time, and I've certainly gone through this in personal experiences with trials in the past that I've handled, where the client looks back and said, I should have considered something like a manslaughter plea to a term of years versus the real possibility of a potential life sentence.
Redlick's defense team faces a formidable challenge against evidence that will be hard to refute, according to Hebert.
On one hand, she's going to claim these self-defense battered issues. On the other hand, she's going to be met with a vigorous amount of evidence that shows that she's not telling the truth. There's a lot of things that she can't explain that are circumstantial in nature, but when you start to build that mountain, it becomes a very difficult burden for the defense to overcome.
Danielle decided to testify in her trial, and this is where she told the story of what happened according to her. The defense also asked Danielle to explain the reasoning behind why she said what she said and acted the way that she acted on the morning of and the night before.
I said, yes. I said he has a stab wound. Yes, he might have had a heart attack triggered by the stab wound, perhaps. Not in those words, but...
Where is this heart attack idea coming from? Or why are you saying that?
First of all, I couldn't believe that he would... Well, he had actually had heart issues, so, and literally 2 weeks before, he had come home from the doctor with a warning for instructions to give a certain amount of blood because of his testosterone treatments could be causing heart complications.
So, did you believe that he had current heart issues that could have caused a heart attack?
Yes.
But how did the blood play with that? When you see all the blood, what were you thinking there in terms of the heart attack?
Well, I knew that he had been injured pretty severely, and I just thought maybe it triggered it, or maybe it was the injury. I didn't want to believe that, but...
You heard the call yesterday, or again, whenever it was played?
Yes.
You don't ever tell him that you stabbed your husband, do you? In the call?
No.
Why?
I was scared. I didn't really know how to handle that situation. Didn't want to incriminate myself.
The defense team, of course, countered her testimony, and they were not happy with Danielle's explanation of the events that had happened.
Feel the release of pressure off your back. Yes?
I feel the release and pressure of him off of me.
You feel his hand, which had been forced down your face, come off, correct?
Yes.
And he is standing there, and he begins to bleed, yes?
I don't know. I ran.
You ran. So let's talk about that. You told the 911 operator the altercation started at 10:30, correct?
Yes, I think.
You also told the 911 operator that you heard moaning from the bathroom, correct?
I think I did say moaning at one point.
So when you're in the bathroom and you're hearing moaning, Michael's alive.
Yes.
Do you recall telling the 911 operator that after you emerged from the bathroom, you found Michael on the floor and you tried to give him mouth to mouth? You remember saying that, yes?
That I did what now? I'm sorry.
That you gave him mouth to mouth after you emerged.
Yes.
And you testified to that yesterday.
Yes.
You also talked to Terrell Tucker about that, didn't you?
Yes.
And in fact, you told Terrell Tucker that you gave him mouth to mouth until you vomited on him, correct?
No, I did not say that. She's totally wrong about that.
She's wrong about that.
Yes.
When you were sitting with Terrell Tucker, you saw her writing notes when you were talking,
I
right?
saw her handwriting notes.
Yeah. Okay.
And I said I smelled something like vomit from coming, but there was no vomit.
And then there's blood everywhere.
It's quite a bit of blood.
And you're looking at your husband who's on the floor, not responding, yes?
Yes.
And the first thing that you did was you lift his shirt up to look at the wound, correct? Well, let me phrase it like this. You eventually say you do mouth to mouth on him, right?
Yes.
But before you do mouth to mouth, you lift up his shirt and you look at the wound.
Yes.
And you actually press your hand on that wound and watch the blood flow under your fingers.
I don't know that I got on my fingers, but yes, I saw it.
Well, you touched a wound and blood didn't get on you?
I saw blood come out. That's all I recall.
When you pressed on the wound.
Yes.
Then you do the CPR.
Yes.
But before you do the CPR, you are engaged in this effort to find your phone. Can't find your phone, right?
Right.
And you're looking and this phone, you said, it was camouflaged. It was camouflaged on a black jacket.
Yes.
This phone, right? So it's camouflaged on a black jacket. You see it, and you get it, right?
Yes.
And you are standing in the immediate proximity of your husband.
Yes.
Looking down on him, unresponsive.
Yes.
Having seen that wound and pressed on that wound and seen the blood flow, yes?
Yes.
And you realize this is serious.
Yes.
And you think to yourself, I should call 911 because he needs help, correct?
Yes.
He needs professionals to come in and try to save his life.
I don't believe that he was dead at that point.
You didn't believe he was dead.
I said I believe he was dead, yes.
So you did CPR on a dead man?
At that moment, I was hoping that he wasn't.
Okay, so you thought there was a chance that this man could still be saved. Because otherwise you wouldn't have done CPR,
I suppose,
right?
yes.
So you're standing there, you have your phone in your hand, you know, I think this man could be saved. And the best way of saving him is to dial 911, correct, Ms. Redlick?
Yes.
You mentioned on direct that you had no business doing CPR, did you not?
Yes, I'm not trained.
You're not trained. You have no idea how to do CPR.
No.
You've never given mouth to mouth on a person or a dummy or anyone.
No.
So standing there over your husband in this moment where you think he can be saved, knowing that 911 is the route to that possibility.
Yes.
You set your phone down.
Objection, misstating her testimony.
Well, did you keep your phone in your hand?
I'll sustain that.
I don't remember. I just remember looking at his face and I was freaking out and I'm like, well, and I guess my thought was.
Well, no. I'm not asking what your thought was. I don't care where your phone was at. What I do care about is you're standing over him. You thought I can call 911 right now. And instead of doing that, Ms. Redlick,
Objection again, misstating her testimony.
Overruled.
instead of taking your finger and doing three little moves, 911, you begin to perform amateur CPR on him, correct?
Yes.
So you stood in that home with the power to call for help, and you let your husband bleed to death on that floor.
He had already bled to death. When I was doing the blowing into his mouth, I was wondering if I could recover him or something. I didn't.
So which is it?
And I thought there.
Objection. Can she answer the question?
So
Hold on. Stop. Let her finish the question. You said, Miss Redlick, I was wondering if I could recover him or something. I didn't. And Mr. Wiggins, your question was, so which one is it? That's the last question.
Which one is it? Is he dead, or you think it's possible to save
well,
him?
if he could be recovered, something would have to be done immediately. And so, yes, I thought perhaps I should do that.
So are you telling this jury that you thought it was impossible to both dial 911 and do CPR? You thought
No,
it was
it's not
either or?
impossible. No.
So you could have done it.
Yes.
It is at 10:52 that you make this one and only sort of attempt at a 911 call. You hit 911, 911, correct?
Yes.
And you know that it doesn't connect.
Yes.
No one's on the other end of that attempt.
No.
We're now heading towards 11 o'clock, correct?
Yes.
At 11 o'clock on January 11th, 2019, you knew Mr. Redlick was dead.
Yes.
No doubt.
No doubt.
You were awake.
Yes.
And it's at this point you begin to clean up the scene.
Yes, somewhat.
So the cleaning effort starts very shortly after you realize Mr. Redlick is dead.
Yes.
Call 911 in the 11 o'clock hour.
No.
All right, so now it's midnight. You're still awake,
Yes.
and you're still cleaning the house.
No.
So you think your entire cleanup effort was from 11 to midnight?
There was some in the morning too. I don't know. There was an entire hour of cleaning. No.
Was it sort of sporadic through the time that you were awake?
I think it was pretty concentrated in that initial attempt.
And the concentration actually is, you start in the kitchen, do you not, Miss Redlick?
I don't remember where I started. There were towels everywhere. I was slipping in blood. I was just wiping up blood. And
Mops?
the mop I think I used in the kitchen area, but that was it.
You got some cleaner out?
No, I don't remember getting cleaner out.
Some of the towels and the mop and the bucket that you used when you began to clean the scene, correct?
Yes.
And amongst those towels is a t-shirt, correct?
I guess, yes.
Well, you put it there, right?
I don't remember. I mean, if you're telling me it's there, then it's there.
You doubt that it's there?
No.
You've been sitting through this trial, correct?
Yes.
This is Michael's shirt, correct?
Yes.
You took that shirt off his body, correct?
Yes.
What hour did you decide to start taking his clothes off?
That was when I was assessing the situation.
Well,
When I found him.
yesterday you said you just lifted his shirt up a little bit. You didn't say anything about taking his shirt off yesterday.
Initially, I just lifted the shirt.
So when does the shirt come off?
I don't know, shortly after that.
That had to take a lot of effort, right?
I don't remember.
He's a large man.
Yes.
He's dead weight,
Yes.
literally. And you have to kind of move him up and wiggle his shirt off, correct?
Yes.
And everything that you have wrought upon him is laid bare to you at this point, correct?
Yes.
And while you're cleaning, you take that shirt and you throw it amongst the towels that you've been using to alter the scene, correct?
No, I think in the morning I was gathering up more of the towels and putting them in a pile.
Oh, so this was part of the morning cleanup.
I believe so, yes.
When you pick up the phone to dial 911, it has been 11 hours since Mr. Redlick has been moved from that location.
Yes.
Except when you're taking his shirt off, right?
Yes.
And mopping around him.
Right.
And moving his arm to clean under it.
Yes.
Other than that, he hasn't moved.
Yes.
For 11 hours. Yes?
Yes.
You had nearly half a day to figure out what you were going to say on the 911 call.
Objection, Judge. Can we approach?
You did not believe that your husband had a heart attack, Ms. Redlick.
Actually, I did. I was hoping, too.
You were hoping.
Not in the morbid sense that I wanted him dead, but he had heart problems, and I thought with all of that excitement that perhaps he did.
So, because if he had a heart attack, you wouldn't have been responsible for his death.
Yes. To an extent.
Ms. Redlick, you did not slit your wrist because you wanted to be with Michael in the afterlife, did you?
I don't know if I was thinking rationally about anything at that point.
Ms. Redlick, you slit your wrist because you didn't want to be in that chair answering for what you're having to answer for today. Isn't that true?
There were a lot of things going through my mind.
And that was one of them. That you didn't want to have to answer for what you did. And so that's why you slit your wrists.
I was concerned. I was afraid.
One of the reasons why you slit your wrists is because you didn't want to have to answer
Objection
for what
asked
you did.
and answered.
Didn't answer my question.
Did not. Objection is overruled. Repeat your question, Mr. Wiggins.
One of the reasons why you slit your wrists is because you didn't want to have to answer for what you did.
I suppose that could be one.
Ms. Redlick, it is only when you are bleeding that you dial 911, correct?
After I was bleeding, yes.
So after you bleed is when you use your finger to make those 3 motions.
Yes.
Please tell us your name.
Melanie Tenaglia,
And what is your relationship to Danielle Redlick?
sister.
Is she your oldest or
She's the oldest, yes. She's
okay. And
older.
how many total siblings are there?
There's me and her, and then my mom had 3 more, so there's 3 half siblings on my mom's side and 3 half siblings on our father's side.
Okay.
So 3, and then the 2 of us.
Did you grow up, where did you grow up?
With my mom, so there would have been 5 of us together grew up.
Did you live in Cleveland, Ohio?
Yes,
At that time, did Danielle Redlick live there as well?
yes,
At some point, did Danielle Redlick move to Memphis?
yes,
And did you also move to Memphis?
yes.
Where was Michael living?
With,
By Michael, I mean Michael Redlick.
in Memphis,
Did you know Michael Redlick?
yes.
Okay. And what was his relationship to Danielle? As in, like, were they husband and wife?
At that time,
Yes, in Memphis.
yes, husband and wife.
Right. When you moved to Memphis, did you spend time at the Redlick home?
Yes,
How often would you see during that time?
a couple times a week.
And did you ever see any physical acts of violence during that time in Memphis?
I saw one, yes.
Okay, can you describe that?
My kids were spending the night at their house and they were ready to come home, so I went to go pick my children up and I walked in the front door as I would always, and I was saying, dance, dance, and I walked straight back to where when you come in the front door, if you walk straight back, her room was back there looking for her, was in the back of their walk-in closet with her back up against the wall, and Michael was in her face, towering over her to where she couldn't like get around him.
Was Michael yelling at her?
Yes.
Did it look like an aggressive situation?
Yes.
And what made it look aggressive to you?
It didn't look like she could get out, and he was like screaming at her I heard him saying, "Bitch, you're a bitch." And I turned around and walked out and said, "Let's go," to my kids, and then I left.
And was Danielle's back to the closet wall?
Yes.
And so Michael was in front of Danielle?
Yes.
And was there lots of room from Michael's back?
To me? To the opening of the closet?
Yes.
Yeah.
No further questions.
So let's talk about this incident that you were describing on direct examination. So you walk into the house and you hear yelling, correct? Into Danielle's house, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you go back to where the yelling is, true?
No. When I walked in the front door, I didn't originally hear yelling.
Okay.
I walked in the front door and I didn't see anybody because you could see the living room, kitchen, dining room area, and I said, "Dance, dance," because that's how we would just go in, and then I'd look for her and say, "I'm here for the kids," or whatever. As I walked closer to the bedroom, which would be straight back, I heard him yelling.
Okay. So when you originally walked in the door, you couldn't hear any yelling, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So it was only when you got back closer to the bedroom door, that's when you heard the yelling, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And then when you actually saw, so you looked into the closet, right? Correct?
Yes.
Okay. And it was the master bedroom closet, right?
Right.
So it was a walk-in closet?
Yes.
Okay. And when you looked into the closet, you saw Danielle with her back against the wall, right?
Right.
And you said that Michael was over top of her, right?
Right.
Okay, but you never saw Michael touching her, correct?
No.
And you didn't see Michael hit her, right?
No.
You just heard Michael yelling, right?
Right.
And then you said something, right? Like, "Let's go," or something like that to the kids?
Yeah.
Okay. But before you left, you actually saw Danielle and Michael exit the closet, right?
I didn't see them come out of the closet, no.
You didn't see them come out of the closet?
No.
Are you... Okay.
I was in the kitchen. They were in the room. So if they would have came out of the closet, I wouldn't have saw them exit the closet.
But they came out, but you did see them once they came out of the closet, right?
I saw Michael.
You never saw Danielle?
No.
And do you remember giving so your testimony here today is that you only saw Michael out of the closet, not both of them, correct?
Right.
And do you remember giving a deposition in this case?
Yes.
And it was on May 29th, 2020?
Yes.
And Mr. Wiggins was present at the deposition?
Yes.
And the defense attorney was present at the deposition?
Yeah.
And I'd like you to read out silently as I read aloud, starting on line 15. "I turned around and walked out and said, 'Kaylee and Sam, let's go.' He must have heard that I was there, and then they came out." Did I read that correctly?
Correct.
Okay, so they came out, correct?
Correct.
So both Danielle, and Michael came out.
Well, I assume Danielle came out because he came out, but I only saw Michael.
But in your deposition, you said they came out, right?
Right.
And that evening after you left, you never called the police, right?
No.
So, in a scene like this, where you have a person who is bleeding in multiple areas of the home, a large home, would it be possible for you to offer some opinion, some reconstruction about where the person walked first, where they went to next, or maybe even where the stabbing or the bloodletting event started? Would that be a possible opinion that you could offer? Not in this particular case, I'm talking about generally.
Generally speaking, that is possible to do based on bloodstain patterns in some cases, yes.
was it possible to do in this particular case?
No, it wasn't. And what I'm really referring to, if you have a bleeding person who's moving, let's say a distance down a hallway or whenever, and dripping blood, you'll see a drip trail. You may or may not see directionality, depending upon how fast they were walking. And then if they went down a hallway and came back, you generally would see a second drip trail going, not too far from it, but there'd be a pair of them, one going up and one coming back. I can't say in this case because it's been too altered.
The entire scene?
Yes, totally altered, yes.
We look here on Friday, January 11th. Let's kind of talk about what the user of this account was doing based off of this data.
So based on this data at 6:37 Mountain Standard Time, the homepage of our website was viewed, which is often how users get to our login page. The app was opened, and then they continued through their daily profile sessions, viewing and hiding profiles for what appears to be around 10 minutes.
January 11th, so local time we're talking about 8:37 a.m. You're in Atlanta.
Correct.
Good morning, January. Was there user data associated with January 12th?
I believe so.
Is that what we see here?
That's correct.
So this is evidence that the user of this particular dating website on January 12th, 2019, interacted with your dating website.
That's correct.
And specifically, what time?
5:22 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, the application was opened. The user then viewed their conversations page. It looks like the app was closed and opened several times. That could be a refresh. And then the data continues.
Okay. So adjust that for this jury. Tell this jury what time the user of this particular dating website was interacting with your website.
That would be 2 hours later, which I believe is around 8:27 or 22.
Well, 5 plus 2.
5 plus 2 is 7.
There we go.
So 7 a.m.
So 7:22 a.m. the user is on your dating website.
That's correct.
I have no further questions. What does this tell us about the device's status at 10:50 and 16 seconds on January 11th, 2019?
The display was turned on at approximately 10:50 p.m. and then was turned off at 10:52:04.
And do we see also some data related to some audio output?
Yes, sir.
And is this consistent with some sort of activity related to the actual phone?
Yes, sir.
Like a user interacting with the phone application?
Yes, sir. And the earpiece receiver.
Okay. Do we see, as we look through this particular page, continued evidence of the device being on and off through 10:53 and 10:54 on January 11th, 2019?
Yes, sir. It shows a pattern of interaction between the user and the device on a regular basis.
And if we were to go line by line, are we going to, at page 4, 5, 7, 8, continue to see examples of a user of this device turning the display on and then turning it off through 10:54 all the way through 11:04 on this particular page?
Yes, sir. The display is turned on and off repeatedly.
Someone's continuing to interact with their phone?
Yes, sir.
And then that continues. We see another instance of it being on at 11:04 and then off at 11:06.
Yes, sir.
And these kind of come in pairs. We have it on and then we have it off.
Yes, sir. And we have a duration that it's on and a duration that it's off.
So someone is the screen is active for 2 minutes between 11:04 and 11:06.
Yes, sir. Approximately 2 minutes.
Do we see that activity resumes on the phone so the device is turned back on, or is actually on again at 11:52.
11:52:08. It's on for approximately 2 minutes.
And then we have it on again, or it goes off, and then the next time someone again is turning on their screen, and now it's past midnight on the 19th, and they're back on their phone.
On the 12th.
I'm sorry, on the 12th of 2019.
Yes, sir.
After midnight on the phone for about 4 minutes.
Correct.
Okay, and does that continue where we see another instance of the device being utilized at 12:26?
12:26 for a little under 2 minutes.
And again at 12:28.
Yes, sir.
Talk to the jury a little bit about what we now know from the data that the user of the phone does at about 12:28.
Well, in line 6405, we have a start time and an end time for a display on. In between, and then we have a display off at about 12:28. In between that, the phone is actually recorded that it was plugged into a charger at approximately 12:27, and it stays on the charger until approximately 7:20 a.m.
Do we have evidence that the user is continuing to interact with their device while on the charger?
Yes, sir. We see the display going off and then going back on at 12:31 a.m. on January 12, 2019. It's used for a period of time. Display goes back off.
This continues.
We have a pattern of use 12:32 a.m. till 12:33. Display goes off for approximately 10 minutes. Display is back on. Display goes off, and then we have that 7:20 in the morning on 1/12/2019.
So we have a kind of an off period where it has been in use through
the night.
11 and 12 o'clock to 12:43 in the morning on January 12th, and then the display goes off.
The display goes off.
And then when do we see the display come back on?
Display comes back on at 7:20. That's coincident with the device. It actually shows that it was unplugged from a charger. And prior to that, we see a duration on line 6414 between 7:20 and 7:26 a.m. The display goes off, 7:26 is off for a few moments. Comes back on at 7:32 a.m. For a few seconds. Goes off for about 13 minutes. Is back on for 2 minutes. Off for 6-ish minutes. And then back on for a very short period of time.
Okay, so continuing to be on and off, all through the 7 o'clock hour once it's picked up.
Yes, sir.
I have some of the testimony to share with you. Again, Jaden Redlick. This is the daughter of the defendant in this case, Danielle, and the deceased, their father, Michael. The prosecutor says, what was the relationship like between your parents? Jaden, who's now 18, was 15 at the time, says very toxic, tumultuous, very rocky. Yeah, it was not a good relationship, very rocky. The prosecutor says, who was the primary source? Jaden, my mother. Of course, the next natural question, prosecutor, why do you say that? Jaden says if there was an issue between them, it would be brought up by my mother.
On 17 June 2022, Danielle was found not guilty of second-degree murder. She was, however, found guilty of tampering with evidence and had to await sentencing. And whilst she was waiting to be sentenced, she was let out on bond.
In the Circuit Court of the 9th Judicial Circuit in and for Orange County, Florida, case number 2019 CF 18460, State of Florida versus Danielle Justine Redlick. Verdict as to count 1, we the jury find the defendant not guilty. So say we all. Signed, juror badge number 283, 4%. Special finding, this page was left blank. Verdict as to count 2, we the jury find the defendant guilty of tampering with physical evidence as charged in the information. So say we all. Signed, juror badge number 283, 4%, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida on the 17th day of June, 2022.
Danielle Redlick walking out these doors just in the past half hour after 3 years. And about 11 hours after she heard the verdict of not guilty after being accused of stabbing her husband to death. We were right here as she walked out. Take a look. You can see inside she was hugging who we think is her father, carrying a huge bag full of her belongings we're guessing were accumulated over her time here. Walking to the parking lot, she was soft-spoken, telling a crowd of reporters she's thanking God she's out. Now that verdict coming in just before noon today. The jury only deliberating a couple hours last night and half the day today. If she was guilty, she could have been sentenced to life in prison. I was able to ask Redlick how it feels and what she plans to do next. How does it feel to be with your family right now, your dad picking you up?
Amazing. This is a walk of faith.
What's the first thing you're going to do?
Call my kids.
Now, Redlick not saying much else other than that she will have to return to the court in August for sentencing since she was found guilty of tampering with evidence.
On the 5th of August, Danielle had her sentencing hearing. At this hearing, a victim impact statement from Jaden was read.
As you are aware, I was appointed by the court to act as a guardian ad litem for the children in this case, some 3 years ago. And I have an impact statement that has been written by the daughter, who's now 17 years of age. They've asked me to read this in accordance with the statute, and with that I will. I'm quoting verbatim from the writing. I want to start this off by saying the only reason I am not personally reading this statement to you all myself is because I simply do not ever want to be in a room with Danielle Redlick ever again. I feel as though there has been absolutely no justice served for my father or his family, including myself and my younger brother. It takes a lot for me to talk about these things and be so vulnerable in front of total strangers. So I please just ask that you all listen to me and please take my feelings into consideration. Since I was about 7 years old, I have endured insane amounts of trauma. This trauma all stems from the same thing, Danielle Redlick. And yes, I'm referring to her as her first name and maiden name because I feel as though she should not even have the privilege of having the same last name as me or my father. I refuse to call her mother because she was never a decent mother figure to me. There were a great deal of things I was not permitted to say in court when I was testifying, which I feel is absolutely insane. I still am unable to even scratch the mere surface of the trauma I am referring to. All I want is justice for my father. It breaks my heart into a million pieces over and over to hear people side with such an abusive, horrible person and then continue to bash on a dead man who isn't here to defend himself. Sure, my dad was no angel and definitely had faults, but he was the kindest, most caring person, and I'm sure the other people who had the chance to know him would vouch for that. He was so kind, gentle, and he never laid a hand on a single person in my family, not myself, Sawyer, or Danielle. I don't even remember him spanking me. My dad always advocated for love and acceptance. He loved everyone and treated everyone the way he wanted to be treated. He was a great man with great values and loved his family. He would never hit a woman. He took my brother and I to so many different ball games, always took me out on our father-daughter days, and he was always in a good mood. Him and I used to watch Saturday Night Live together every Saturday for 5 years straight. He took me and Sawyer to the movies all the time and made sure we were always happy, fed, and well taken care of. He always stood up for others. He always wanted to joke around and play whatever game or talk about literally anything. He loved to talk, people watch, and get to know people. He loved others, and everyone loved him. He was not a bad person. I am so angry about the way he has been portrayed, so extremely angry. He was the best dad I ever could have asked for. I remember at certain points, I would imagine Sawyer and I staying with him full time if my parents were to divorce. I have no regret in saying that, and I mean it wholeheartedly. It absolutely breaks my heart into a million pieces that Sawyer has to grow up without him. I do too, but Sawyer no longer has the amazing dad to show him how to grow up and be just like him. We are both extremely heartbroken to have our pops ripped from our world so suddenly and to have been lied to about it for so long after. We miss our pops so much. I would do anything to bring him back. Someone took him from our world and ruined our childhoods, let alone the start of our lives and futures. We have endured so much since he was taken from us that it has been difficult to process a natural grieving process. We have suffered such incredible amounts of trauma to the point where our bodies have reacted to it. I have had nightmares for the past 3 years about Danielle, and more specifically about certain decisions she has made. Sawyer has nightmares too. I have developed a near fear of being murdered. I have had phases of extreme paranoia, and I've gone through phases where I've been so depressed over the situation that I was unable to take care of myself for a long time. I've lost a great amount of weight, and for a while I would get extremely triggered and break down over someone even saying the words dad or parent. I've had an entire school gossip about me and my situation, as most of Winter Park. People recognize my last name and often already know about this so-called news story that is my life. I lost everything at once, and it was broadcasted to the world, and I have always given the short end of the stick. I am just now getting to be okay again, but this reopened so many wounds that I genuinely thought could start to heal from. You may all be fooled by the incredible mask this woman presents to you all, but I am not. My father did not get away in time. I am not worried. I am so worried for my brother. Judge, please make some kind of stipulation that Danielle not be allowed near myself and Sawyer, so we don't have to be re-traumatized like we have been already. We're both settled into our new life without our dad, and we want to be left in peace. It took us a while to get here, and we deserve that at the very least.
Ms. Redlick, you testified at trial that you killed your husband, and the jury has found you not guilty of that conduct, and I will not sentence you based upon that conduct. You further testified that after you killed him, you were scared and didn't know what to do, and you froze. And the evidence shows that there were over 10 hours where you waited before you called 911 and gave varying stories as to the cause of Mr. Redlick's death. But you stand before me today for your conduct during the time between Mr. Redlick's passing and the 911 call made on the next day. And it is that conduct for which you are going to be sentenced today. According to the crime scene pictures and evidence, blood stains were smeared throughout the home. You used bleach and other cleaners to clean what looked like a horror scene. Crime scene photographs also showed where you left the cleanup towels and a bucket of colored water. The blood pattern expert testified that typically blood patterns could tell a story or explain the circumstances surrounding a homicide crime scene like this, but not so in your case. The expert also testified that as a result of your conduct, it was virtually impossible to determine the exact circumstances surrounding Michael Redlick's death. The scene was tampered with so much so that the blood evidence was of little to no value to determine what happened between the night of January 11th of 2019 and mid-morning, January 12th of 2019. Conduct for which the jury convicted you, tampering with physical evidence, deserves more prison time than you have served. But the law does not allow me to do that, and I will not sentence you to a prison sentence. You have already been adjudicated guilty of count 2, tampering with physical evidence. And so for that conduct, I will sentence you to 364 days in the Orange County Jail with credit for 364 days time served. That's going to be followed by a period of 12 months of probation.
I couldn't find much about what she had been up to after being set free, or whether she had repaired her relationship with her kids. But I do know that this is a very, very controversial case. And as always, I would love to hear your thoughts and your opinions on this case. Do you think that it was self-defense, as she stated? Do you think it was second-degree murder, not pre-planned? Or do you think it was actually a pre-planned murder? As always, thank you so very much for watching this video. If you have gotten this far, I appreciate your support so very much. Please leave a like and subscribe if you have not done so already. Until next time, stay safe out there, take care of yourself, and take care of each other. Bye!